Hello, my name is Corey Pruitt, and I'm a Senior Solutions Engineer here at Clarity. In this video, I'll be presenting the features and capabilities available as part of our exposure management offering in the xDome platform. The approach to risk and vulnerabilities within an OT environment is very different than the one used within traditional IT networks today. While IT networks will often focus on addressing a large number of vulnerabilities as a normal course of business, typically through the ongoing application of patches, OT networks are not normally able to tolerate this level of disruption. This is due to the fact that OT networks are primarily focused on production uptime, stability, and safety over security and confidentiality. As a result, OT security leaders need to be strategic with how they approach risk reduction. By taking an exposure management approach, organizations are able to prioritize their remediation efforts and focus on assets that are likely to be exploited first, rather than spending their limited cycles on assets that are otherwise well protected with other compensating controls. The first step in an exposure management program is having an effective asset inventory. While traditional IT tools can identify assets by IP or MAC address as well as manufacturer, Clarity xDome is able to go further. Looking at this HMI as an example, we are able to identify the exact model, firmware, and serial number as part of building out a comprehensive device profile. This profile allows the plant or facility managers to work hand in hand with the security team to understand not just the vulnerabilities that are present, but the specific devices that are impacted by these vulnerabilities. Now that we understand the devices within the facility, we need to begin to quantify the risk associated with this device. Here you can see the risk score, which is calculated based on the likelihood of exploitation, including any compensating controls, combined with the impact if this device were to be compromised. Likelihood is made up of multiple factors, such as if the device is using weaker default passwords, is running an end-of-life operating system, or is communicating directly with the internet. Some of these factors can be mitigated through the use of compensating controls, such as having an asset isolated on its own secured VLAN with an optimized security policy, or having EDR installed where possible, where others may require changing the device configuration in order to effectively address. Quantifying impact is critical as well, as you may not want to consider prioritizing reduction activities on an asset that exists on a limited run production line over one that is critical to your day-to-day operations with multiple other downstream dependencies. Understanding these factors allows security teams and operators to make a more informed judgment on how to prioritize their limited time rather than focusing on the score of a vulnerability alone. Let's go ahead and take a few minutes to dive further into the concept of impact. In OT, as in IT, not all assets have the same impact and importance to the business. That being said, no asset within an OT environment exists or functions on its own. Instead, these assets are all intertwined as part of an overall process to drive a specific outcome, such as the production of consumer packaged goods, pharmaceuticals, or power generation and distribution. These processes all have different priorities and impact to the business if they were to be disrupted. A controller that controls a conveyor to move product should not necessarily be treated the same as a PLC that is responsible for ensuring safety of the site operators. Understanding this context and exactly how a particular asset contributes to an overall functional outcome is key to prioritization activities and allows for both OT engineers and security teams to correlate any potential interruption to direct business outcomes. Now that we have an understanding of how risk is calculated for individual assets, let's consider risk as a whole. One of the metrics that business and security leaders alike want to understand is how successful their efforts are relative to other businesses within their industry. To support these discussions, Clarity xDome provides anonymized comparisons of your risk score relative to other similar organizations. These charts can help visualize where you stand today and can also indicate specific areas where your organization may be excelling or present opportunities for further improvements. These metrics are important to business stakeholders to understand where they're placed compared to the rest of the industry. Any risk reduction program is going to involve addressing vulnerabilities to some degree. That being said, let's consider a hypothetical situation. During an upcoming maintenance window, you have the opportunity to apply an update to one additional device. Should you prioritize the asset with a critical CVSS vulnerability that is not being actively exploited into the wild and you have multiple compensating controls already in place? Or should you prioritize an asset with an active direct connection to the internet, that has a vulnerability with a medium severity CVSS score, but that is being actively exploited in the wild. Traditionally, vulnerability management would likely focus on the critical vulnerability before the medium, but in most situations, the asset with the medium severity vulnerability actually represents a higher risk for most organizations. Let's take a look at the vulnerabilities that are currently being tracked within the system. Here you can see that there are approximately 129,000 vulnerabilities. Many of these are not relevant for the environment that is being monitored in this demonstration, so we ideally want to focus on those that are actually relevant. By switching to relevant, we can see that this number is reduced to 681. While 681 is a much more manageable number in comparison, this still represents almost 80,000 device vulnerability pairs, far too many vulnerabilities for most organizations to be able to address without expending significant resources. We can narrow this window further by focusing only on those relevant vulnerabilities that are actively being exploited in the wild. These vulnerabilities represent the highest risk to an organization as these have been fully weaponized and are actively being used to attack organizations on a day-to-day basis. Addressing these specific vulnerabilities will allow organizations to achieve the most significant risk reduction results. So far, we've discussed prioritizing risks, addressing relevant vulnerabilities, and focusing on assets that represent the highest risk and impact to the business. But how do we identify these assets? Exposure scenarios are sets of rules that are built into the xDome platform and can be further customized based on our customers' needs. These rules allow for our customers to quickly and effectively identify assets that have combinations of exposures that together represent increased risk to the operation. For example, assets that are actively communicating to the internet while running end-of-life operating systems that cannot be further patched. As organizations continue their transformation journey and continue to optimize their operations, new assets that meet these conditions can be identified every day, and this capability allows organizations to quickly identify and respond to these assets. With so many factors to consider in an exposure management program, it can be difficult to understand where to start, as well as to understand the resulting impact of any particular action. To support these efforts, we provided a consolidated view that centralizes all of our risk recommendations in one location. This risk recommendations page provides a view of the current risk score for the organization or site, as well as a reflection of that risk score over time. As we scroll down, we can see a list of the various recommendations that are relevant for the organization, including creating custom access control lists, mitigating known threats, or further hardening identified systems. Each of these recommendations provides a view into how many assets could be affected by this action, as well as the resulting impact of the risk score if the activities were to be completed. By taking this information into account, organizations can prioritize short and long-term objectives to materially reduce their risk and ensure that their operational processes remain stable. Another area where working with IT and OT security teams can be challenging is around the use of vulnerability scanners. Most organizations will already have a traditional IT vulnerability scanning tool in place. Unfortunately, in most situations, the vulnerability scanners are not suitable for use within OT environments due to the very real risk of process disruption. While there are traditional IT assets that exist within these environments, the assets are often intermixed with the more sensitive OT assets, which makes it difficult to effectively identify which assets can be safely scanned and which cannot. By integrating xDome with these vulnerability scanning tools, xDome can share asset information to safely orchestrate this scanning activity. Specific IT assets that have been identified in xDome can be safely shared with the IT scanning tool while actively excluding the sensitive OT assets from any scanning activity. This capability helps our customers extend the effectiveness of their existing tools and helps IT and OT engineers partner together to drive their risk reduction efforts in a collaborative fashion. For organizations who want to even better understand the scope of assets that exist within their OT networks, Clarity provides a capability known as Clarity Edge. Clarity Edge can be run on Windows, Linux, or even as a Docker container to collect information about both the asset that is being used to run Edge, as well as the other assets that are connected to the local subnet. This information can be fed directly to the xDome platform. However, Edge can also be run in offline mode and write the relevant data to a file. This allows the visibility and resulting exposure management program to further extend even into air gap networks, which are historically very difficult to identify. Combining Edge with other discovery tools ensures that our customers have the most complete picture of the assets and risks within their environment. Ultimately, we all know that the hard work being performed in every organization needs to be tracked, reported, and reflected, especially to organization leadership. To support these efforts, xDome contains dozens of pre-built reporting options built natively into the platform, with capability for the creation of custom widgets to further fine-tune the reporting capabilities to your individual needs. These reports can be scheduled and distributed to customer stakeholders as needed to ensure that the necessary visibility remains in place and to provide ongoing support for this important work. This has been a high-level overview of just a few of the capabilities xDome provides to support our customers with their exposure management programs. If you'd like to learn more about the xDome platform or how Clarity can help your organization stay protected, please don't hesitate to contact us for more information.